think the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, this is BSA's new territory to me, so bear with me. This air filter does thread off of here. Maybe. I mean, it definitely threads off. Will it clear? We are still trying to find that out. The fabric wiring looks pretty rough, so I think that's going to be a video in itself. All right, there's our air filter right off of there. Looks pretty dirty. Maybe they look like that new. It's pretty yellow and brown in there. We'll throw a new one on there because you can't be too careful with that stuff. Fuel line's already off the thing, so that's pretty simple. We have our Whitworth tools here. It says 5/16. Yeah. It doesn't look like 5/16 width, but I don't know. This Whitworth stuff is new to me. So, it looks like it says 5/16 on the wrench, and it fits nice and tight. So we're going to... Okay, so I'm going to back this nut all the way off as far as I can. It's going to hit the frame of the carburetor here at some point. Then I'm going to go over the other side and do the same with the other side, and then I'll have to move the carb back and then spin that nut off a little bit more. All right, from there, they're both backed off, so... Oh man, that is on there. Yay! So we're going to wiggle both of those out a little bit further. So apparently you have to have these Amal carbs in just the right spot to get the nut off of there. Drop the washer down, figure out where that thing went. There it is. Because these are their own special thread, too. Then from there, we can slide this carburetor right off of there. We're going to leave the old gasket hanging on there, though we will replace it and get a new one. But just to keep track of it, I'm going to leave it hanging out right there. The old carb, pretty much, there it is. If you twist the grip, you can actually see the piston lift up and down out of there. It moves pretty free, which is good. So from here, I'm going to take a Phillips screwdriver and take these two screws out of the top. And I should be able, that should take the slide right up on out of there. Alright, and from there, we can lift this piston right on up out of here. Luckily, the bore of this, the bore down inside that carburetor looks pretty good. The slide, it's got a few scratches on it. There's definitely some gunk in there. Some crud and dirt has definitely built up in there. So that pretty much takes the carburetor off. To disconnect this, you're going to want to lift the needle up out of here, just like this. Oh, there's a little clip. That's going to be a pain to get back on there. Pretty sure I did that in the wrong order. Either way, the needle's out of it. That's going to be a trick to get back on. And we're going to lift the spring up out of there. And then we should be able to take the throttle cable. Well, hang on. Let's loosen the adjuster on this. Alright, so right here is the cable adjuster. So we're going to have to find some little wrenches here and break that free. So we'll just back that adjuster all the way off of there. Then thread this adjuster all the way in. So now we should be able to pull this spring back with our fingers. Huh. This is interesting. So the goal is we have to get the cable to drop down, move over, and then go through that larger hole there. See that clip down in there? Yeah. So we're going to see... Oh, hey, look at that. Comes right out. I was going to have to rotate it. Okay, so the spring apparently holds the clip down. That's interesting. We're all learning things today. And we're going to hold the spring back. We're going to slide the cable down and then across. We're going to get it to that center pin there where the needle was. And whoop! Slides right up off of there. Alright. We're just going to set that right there to keep track of it. And there are pistons off the thing. It's got a little wear on it, but other than that, it's not too bad. Definitely some dried up grease and oil in there, so that will take some cleaning. From here, let's take the float bowl off of this thing, and we will see what she looks like inside. That'll tell us how much work this is going to be as we move through this project. So luckily, it's just a flathead screwdriver. Oh, man, that is baked on there. Oh, there we go. All right. Actually, this is not too bad. So down the float bowl, there's definitely a little bit of varnish down in the bottom. Overall, it's not too cruddy. Our needle for the float is overall pretty clean. Plastic float. I don't know if that was stock or not. This thing really doesn't look too bad inside. I mean, it's definitely got some varnish in there, as will happen if anything sits long enough. Let's pop one of the jets out of this thing. Take an 8mm and, well, looks like we're taking the whole emulsion tube and everything out of there. Alright, so it's got some gunk in there, but it's not like crudded over solid or anything. If I hold up the light, I can actually see through it. So, yeah, it's really not too bad. Would it have ran? Maybe. Probably would have clogged up and caused problems. Whoop. Old gasket shot. No surprise there. And we got our idle jet right here. Or maybe that's our float vent. I think that's our vent. Maybe some type of bleed. I don't know. We're going to have to learn about Amal carburetors here. So, yeah. That's all that jazz. Also, I think it should have had an O-ring right there. Interesting. Yeah, so overall it's not too bad. We should be able to clean this carburetor up and reuse it. So I'm going to move this over the bench. We'll finish disassembling this thing. And then we're going to soak it in the carb cleaner for a while and take it out and go from there. So, let's move over the workbench. Okay, so this Amal carburetor has been soaking for a while. First we had it in the Sonic parts washer with just some simple green type cleaner, and now I've had it soaking inside a gallon of carburetor cleaner. So let's take it up and out of there. Wasn't too bad inside. Of course, we have a nice clean workspace. Hey, there's the little basket. Alright, so everything is, well, it's not too bad. So what we're going to do is give it all a blast with some carbon brake cleaner. So we're going to take the last few things apart on this. We're going to take the float bolt off of it, the float bolt drain off of it. There's going to be a gasket right there that we're going to replace. That thing looks pretty good. We're probably going to give this a little bit more of a soak because there's still a lot of gunk down in there. Dude, and you can kind of see where it came out of the tip of the screwdriver. And it's not bad, but it is enough that it might break free and eventually clog up a jet. And we don't want that. Let's see. Oh, let's also take off the fuel delivery port there. So that is going to be... It's probably going to be another Whitworth one. And those are out in the garage and it's cold outside. So we're going to use a precision adjustable wrench. Alright, we went and got a proper wrench. Like all great metric motorcycles, it's 14 millimeter. So that thing's not too bad down there. Now down inside of here, there's a little filter. And you can see there's a little bit of gunk in there. The filter is kind of seeing better days. It's starting to collapse a little bit. It's really not too bad. There's some crud on this bolt. We're going to run that through a parts cleaner because that would prove to be a problem down the road. And this little float bowl fuel delivery thing, it's not too bad. Use a little cleaning though. So now off to the body, we're going to take this jet out. You always want to use the screwdriver that fits the absolute best down in there. There we go. Take that little jet out of there. And we're going to hold up the light, and I can't see through it. So, that's going to need some more cleaning. Scrape some old gasket off of there. And our idle speed screw here is going to have to come out. It's got some crud on it. Overall, not too bad. A little bit of a seal on there we're going to have to probably replace. Then we're going to take our mix screw out of this as well. Before I take it out, I'm going to see how far it takes to crank it in until it stops. So there's half, 1, 1.5. So this is 1.5 turns out. So we're going to make note of that. That way when we put it back in, we can set this to the right spec, which is important because I haven't looked at the manual yet, and I don't know if that spec is actually in the manual. So now we can thread it right on up out of there. As you can see, this O-ring has definitely seen better days. Ooh. Oh, my bad. That was the... Or is that the mix screw? Nope. There's a lot of crud on that. That thing's gunky. And the O-ring just disintegrated in my hands. So, other than that, that's pretty much a full teardown. I'm going to take a little bit of a razor knife and scrape this little bit of gasket off of here. Maybe take a Scotch-Brite pad and clean that up. But other than that, the body looks really good. We're going to look down in here, and there is some gunk inside here. Let's clean that out. So we're going to check out the bore. The bore in there looks pretty good. The big things you're worried about are a lot of vertical scratches on it, gouges, things like that. Because this slide is also essentially the butterfly, you know, the thing that's controlling the air on a conventional carburetor. So if there's lots of scratches in this, it means it's going to hang up when you open and close it, and you may get air leaking past, depending on how the piston's sitting in there, which is going to give you a really inconsistent idle and be a giant nightmare to tune down the road. So we'll give this thing a quick scrub down here. And the aluminum's got some discoloration, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. Could probably take some really fine cloth, really fine emery cloth, or maybe just a blue rag like this and give it a good buff clean. I said run your fingernail across this, see if anything hangs up. This one's in pretty good shape. There's still a little bit of crud packed onto it from it sitting, but it doesn't seem to have any damage to the aluminum, so I think we're sitting in good shape there. And there's still some dirt and grit down there, so it's going to go back into the jug of carb cleaner. And of course the float bowl, this thing's actually in pretty good shape now that it's been through the sonic cleaner and everything. For visual purposes, I'll probably take a little bit of Scotch-Brite to the outside of this carburetor float bowl and the outside of the carburetor body just to kind of clean it up a little bit, just for visual purposes. But this thing actually cleaned up pretty well. We'll let it soak just a little bit more to get any more crud out of there. And then we'll give it a good blast of carburetor cleaner. And yeah, then we'll start the reassembly. Okay, so I was about to do a video with reassembly, and then I discovered that I had never taken this piece apart. So I went and took it apart, and you know, there's a bunch of gunk on the threads on this end, so that's definitely going to need to be cleaned out. And then I wanted to unscrew this little brass fitting on this end, and it broke off. Didn't even twist on it that hard. So we are going to have to do a video on removing broken jets. Broken jets / emulsion tubes. Yeah. So I have the jet housing up here in the vise. You can see the broken off jet right down in there. Now it's probably held in there by a whole bunch of dried varnish, gasoline goo, and whatever else that is left behind after gasoline evaporates. So I'm going to take the heat gun and heat it up and bake that stuff out of there. Right there where it's starting to turn to liquid again. That's how I know it's heating up. Alright, we're going to try it right there. Going to take our easy out. Tap it down in there. Oh shit. Get a little tighter in the vise. So we're going to take it out of there. Put it on the anvil section. There we go. Clamp it back in the vise. Hopefully the temperature has not equalized. We're going to take the adjustable wrench, the very precision adjustable wrench, ever so carefully try and spin that sucker out of there, and look at that. Just like that. You really shouldn't use an adjustable wrench because it's easy to snap the easy out off on it. But hey, I've been doing this a long time. I cut corners. Either way, thread up out of there. There is the remnants of our old jet. So we've got our carburetor body here. It's all nice and cleaned up. Got our broken parts here. And let's pull the rest of the items up and out of the gallon of carb cleaner there. There's our slide. Fuel line housing. Ooh. And a bunch of other little pieces parts. Have a look. So we're going to rebuild what we can here today. So we're going to cut a rebuild kit open. We got some genuine Amal parts. You can argue in the comments about whether or not that was a good idea. I got these from Lowbrow Customs. So before we go to install anything, we're going to size all this stuff up side by side here. Hopefully you can see this. Obviously the shinier ones are our new ones. The not so shiny ones are not new ones. This appears to be an extended idle speed screw, so I'm actually going to reuse that. They give us a new one in the new kit, but I like how this one has a little extended grabby thing on there, probably so you can easily reach down and adjust your idle without a tool. So we're going to reuse that. So we will pop a new O-ring on there. Should be able to roll it right up in that groove. Maybe. Careful not to nick it when you're doing this. We're going to thread that up in there. These are a little tight fit on the... These are all the same size O-ring, right? Yeah, they all look to be the same size O-ring. So the O-ring was a tight fit. I ended up taking a small screwdriver here, a small flathead screwdriver, and as I push it down in there, push the idle speed screw down in there, I end up taking the O-ring and kind of massaging it down in there with that small flathead screwdriver. Probably the better way would have been to file a faint burr, or if they would have put a faint chamfer on that port, but they didn't, so we worked around it. So there's that. Okay, one of the next things we're going to do is reassemble the bottom of this float bowl. So we've got a new screen right here. I'm not gonna lie, I need the fucking diagram. This is gonna be this here, isn't it? Shit, I can't put that on here yet. God damn it. There's one corroded ass motherfucker. There's one corroded up item. So we're going to reassemble the float here. I'm going to need the float height. Capacities. Carburetor. Amal. All right, cut. Now, as you may or may not be able to see just off camera here, I have a service manual for this thing, which is great because it also gives me the exploded diagrams and everything. So next we are going to take our pilot screw, idle pilot screw, whatever you want to call it. We're going to roll the O-ring up onto that. Again, nice and carefully. If you can't get it to go with your fingers, try to use anything sharp. Maybe put a little grease on it. Sometimes holding them in your hand a little bit helps just to warm the O-ring up, and then it rolls up on there. There you go. Just like that. Then because we had to massage the other one in there, we are going to take a wee little bit of Amsoil metal protectant, aerosol lubricant. We're going to squirt that down in there. I'm actually going to put a little drip or two on the O-ring there. Then we're going to crank it. We're going to use a screwdriver that fits. We're going to crank it all the way down there until it stops. Making sure the O-ring goes down in there. Make sure the O-ring didn't get caught up around the edge there. Everything looks good. Whoop. So I'm crank it in there until it stops. And then our idle speed setting is... Really, guys? Thanks for nothing. Okay. So, best I can tell in the manual and the internet forums, they're saying a half a turn out. So we're just going to back it out to right about there. And we're going to find out if that's all right, if that's right when we try and start it. Next, we're going to check and make sure our jet is clean by holding up the light, making sure we can see light through it. If we can't, we'll run a torch tip cleaner through there or some guitar string. And I can't quite see through it, so we're going to find a little piece of wire. Now that our idle jet is clean, Appears to be pretty clean. I hope it's clean enough. We'll give it one more squirt with the Amsoil brake clean. There we go. All right. Now I feel it's good and clean. Now I'm going to thread this back into place here. Now I already squirted this carburetor out with compressed air and carburetor cleaner. Try to get in there where it fits nicely. Always use your best fitting screwdriver. Remember, it's just a jet. You don't kill it. All right, so that is back in there. Now from there, I can reinstall the float. So I can take my float pin. I can take my float right there. I'm going to take my float pin here. We're going to slide that all the way through. Everything looks good and clean. Shouldn't hang up at all. Then we're going to take our new jet. There's our new jet. There's our old jet. Both appear to be the same. So we'll take our new jet and we're going to hang it on the back of the float just like that. Then we're going to take the float just like that. Drop it right down in there. Everything should work nice and well. Top of the float is measured from the gasket surface to the top of the float. And it's supposed to be basically 1/8 to 1/4 inch, approximately. So I'm going to take this and measure this. It's right around 1/8 of an inch. That is from the top of the gasket surface to the top of the float. And also, I'm holding the float up in the air with my thumb. So that is in good shape. We would set that right there. Was going to reinstall the fuel input port and the fuel filter, but when I took this thing out of the container, I noticed this this bolt here was really crudded up and corroded. And it might be clean enough. There's a lot of crud inside it. I'm buying a new bolt. So there's the O-ring that'll go with that too. Now I can reinstall the float bolt drain here because the inside of that came out nice and clean. It's just a little discolored in there. Take our gasket, and that should just go in there finger tight on the bottom of it. Got our new gasket there. Just thread that big old sucker right up in there. Should thread in pretty easy. Break it free, tighten it up. There we are. There we go. Put a little aerosol lubricant on those threads. Now they go in there nice and easily. They appeared to be okay, though. It looked like they were probably corroded and pitted at one point in their life. So they just don't thread quite perfect. So basically the float is ready to install other than the fuel delivery port. Sorry, the float bowl is ready to install. From here, we can put the needle back inside the slide. You want to check these slides out, especially on these old Amals. Make sure they're still in good shape. This one has some discoloration on it, but when I run my fingernail across it, I don't feel anything. So we're going to call that good. You want to make sure these things aren't all wore out. Same with the bore of the carburetor. You want to make sure that's not all wore out. So from there, we can take our needle. Here's our old needle, and our new needle clip. I had to reference the pictures to be sure, and the manual. It says to put this clip on the lower of the two. There's some lighter, yeah, just leave it on the lower of the two there. And then from there, I can drop this down inside there. Wait a minute, I gotta hook the throttle cable up to this, don't I? Yes, I do, that's right. This isn't fully going in there yet, because I have to hook the throttle cable up to this before I can put that back in there. But that is the needle going back in, just like that. And what's gonna happen is the throttle cable will go through the cap, through the spring, then down there, and it will hook, the throttle cable will hook into the slide, down in that notch there. And once the throttle cable is hooked up, I will then drop this needle down in place there, which I can't fully see because I'm trying to hold it up for the camera. There we are. And I'll drop that needle in place, just like that. And then, of course, this will all slide down the throttle cable, and then it'll all drop into the carburetor. Try to give you the best camera view of that as I can as I move along. Everything else on this top looks good. So as you can see, we have an O-ring for the front face here, and we have a gasket. Now, for some reason, Amal says, do not use an O-ring and a gasket on the same joint surface. I gotta admit, it does sound a little weird. I'm going with the O-ring, just because I think that's going to work better. There was a gasket on there before when I took it apart, but you know, we're going to go with my idea. Now, before you install these, you're going to want to put this on a flat surface and check to make sure this Amal carburetor is straight across there. What happens is they get leaks, then people over-torque the bolts that hold the carburetor flange to the engine, and this actually warps. And then, so it sits on there like that, and of course then the gasket doesn't seal it up. Then you have idle problems, people tighten it up more idle problems, all kinds of chaos. So this one's still in good shape. I checked it with a straight edge, and I put on a surface plate skid mark, so we should be good to go there. So from there, everything is essentially ready to reinstall now once I get a new bolt and a new needle jet, because this one got broken in half. And I guess I have to clean this main jet. So I guess everything's not ready to go. We still got another, some more to do. So yeah, that's all I got for this video. And then from there, we'll do a video on removing broken jets from jet holders. There you go. All right, before we go to reinstall all that, let's move our stuff out of the way. And we're also going to put a new air filter in our air filter housing. So I have a new air filter here. I know it's the air filter because it says so on the bike, on the box. I know it's a new air filter because it says so on the box. So inside here, there's an air filter. What else would there be? Anyways, there's a flathead screwdriver here, flathead screw. Should be able to simply back that off of there. There's this weird little toe clamp here. So we'll pop that out of the way. Now we'll take these two metal ends off. There's our old air filter, nice soaked in gasoline and Rhode Island dirt. Now we're going to put it back together like so. And we're going to put the air filter back on there. Now probably would have been a good time to polish this thing up, but I didn't think of that. So you have these little toe clamps on there that grab the metal housing. We're going to make sure they're in a good range. Yes, they are. Make sure our metal cover doesn't bind up on the mesh, and just tighten the flathead screw up. Well, tighten it up while you hold those in place. There we go. If you do it right, the screw should tighten the clamp down. The clamp kind of tightens up on itself, and it's all good there in place, just like that. And when we're ready, once the carburetor is installed, we can then thread this air filter housing right back on the face of the carburetor. Yay! There you go, just like that. Okay, so here we are. So I hunted around on the interwebs and found some new parts. They're Amsoil replacement parts, allegedly, according to the package. So that's good. I got a new jet for the needle. Oh, it drops in there like so. Whoop, whoop. Yep. And I got a new bolt for the fuel inlet. So, with that in mind, I can start putting these things back together. So we're going to thread the new jet in here. Snug that up. Don't want to kill it or you'll break the jet off. Then you have to go through the whole process again. Then take our main jet here, which happens to be a 240. By the way, this one was a 106. That's why I took it out of there, so hopefully it's the right size. Again, look through the main jet, hold up the light, make sure everything looks good and clear in there, which it appears to. And just thread that right on in there. Wait a minute. Am I doing that all right? Did I thread those in the correct end? I am pretty sure those are not in the correct end. So we will remove that main jet. Then turn this around. So apparently you can put these in backwards. So remember, the little jet goes in first because that's what the needle is going to drop into. So we'll just snug that up. Then we take our main jet right here. Thread that right on in through there. And again, just snug it up. You don't need to kill it. Because one, you don't want to break the jet off, and it's just holding the jet in. It doesn't really take a lot of force. Then from there, take your main jet, thread it right in the bottom of the carburetor. If it is a little tight, like this one's got little tight spots in it, so I'm just going to work it back and forth. Maybe there's still a wee little bit of crud in the threads. Maybe the threads are distorted. The carb's 50 years old, so who knows. We're just going to snug it up just like that. Then we can take our new float bowl bolt. Float bowl bolt. We just remember to put a gasket on the bottom of that, on the bottom of our float bowl boat. Float bowl bolt. I should just put that in subtext at the bottom. Check this for contaminants. It's got a wee little bit of crud in here. So we're going to take our Amsoil brake clean and give it a little... There we go. Thread this right up through the bottom there. Should fit right in there nice and easy. Do. And then we take our new filter here. Flange goes up. You can't put it in the wrong way. It won't fit. Flange goes up because this flange is also the gasket sealing surface. And we can take that and thread that bolt up in there. Now you might find... I'm just going to take the float out. There we are. Now you might find that this bolt does not turn easily inside the plastic housing, and that's okay. Just hold the plastic housing in place as you thread it down in there. Make sure you don't cross thread this. I am going to reuse this elbow here, but in hindsight, this is like 50-year-old plastic, so there's a good chance I might end up just getting another one of these and eventually replacing it down the road. In the meantime, we're going to position it to the side of the fuel valve, which is going to be like that. And then we'll tighten it up. Make sure our float needle is nice and clean. Drop that down in there. Hang on, I had to do that very well. There we go. Alright. Now we can take our carburetor with our new float bowl gasket. Woo! slide that down on there like so. And then drop our carburetor right on top. If you're wondering which way it goes, remember the jet needs to go through one of those little holes right there. The air bleed jet, that is. So just line that up. I'll try to hold it so you can see it. It should just all drop into place just like so. And if you got new screws, now would be the time to use them. I didn't. So I'm going to take my old screws here. Thread them down in there, just like so. A lot of people like to switch these with Allens, and that is not a bad plan. I didn't plan that far ahead, so we're going to reuse the flathead screws. So run both of these in until they're snug. You don't need to kill them, but run them both in. That way you know the float bowl is flat against the gasket, and you can go back and snug each one up. Whoop. Just crank it in until you feel it kind of stop and you feel the bolt stretch a little bit. That's all you're trying to do. Don't kill it. Alright. That's the main part of your carburetor. From here, you can take your slide needle and drop it down in there. I believe you cannot put this in the wrong way. Nope, should just drop right down in there. And then check it to see if it moves nice and free up and down, which it should. This one does as well. Now, the next step will be to actually put this spring on here. I take it back. The next step is going to be, really, we should be hooking the throttle cable to the slide, but that will be in another video of carburetor reinstallation. I'll probably do a throttle cable lubricant and stuff with that one. But to keep track of everything, we will now drop the spring down in there. Then we're going to take our top, and this little round edge that's on there, we're going to make sure that lines up with the spring. And then we're going to drop that down in place just like so. I'm going to take our two Phillips screws, and we're just going to run these two in finger tight. Because we're going to have to take them back off once we actually hook the throttle cable up to it. Then from there, you have, for your intake gasket, you either have a choice of an O-ring or a gasket itself. Amal says not to use both. I'm going to use an O-ring because I like how it protrudes out a little bit. Therefore, I know it's more apt to smush down in there. But I will hang on to the gasket in case the O-ring leaks. Then I'll use the gasket. But pretty much at that right there, this thing is ready for reinstallation. Again, put your finger in there. Make sure the slide goes up and down nice and easy, which it should. If you have a choke, you would have wanted to slide that into the slide, though most people don't have chokes on these things. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. This carburetor is ready for reinstallation. And once it's installed, we'll thread our new air filter housing, or we'll thread our air filter housing with our new air filter onto the face of the carburetor. And fire the bike up and see how she does. Just like that. That's all I got. If you want to learn any more about in-person classes or Amsoil products, go to the link in my bios or my link tree, or just Google it or email me. And I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Or put a comment in the comments below. That's all I got.